say hasta la vista. I'll be back just after. And over to you, Nawaz and Jagdish.
Bonjour Nilam, bonjour à tous. Jagdish, Joypal, bonjour.
Bonjour Nawaz, bonjour Nilam, auditeurs et internautes, bonjour.
La private notice question du leader de l'opposition ce matin est adressée au ministre du Travail, Sudesh Kalichan. Xavier Duval envie connaît si pour payer un 14e mois bonus cette année-là à tout bien employé du secteur public et privé qui gagne moins que 50 000 roupies salaire.
C'est une question qui concerne 350 000 travailleurs mauriciens et qui donc paient tous 50 000 roupies par mois au maximum, donc moins de 50 000 roupies. Parmi, il y en a environ 200 000 qui touchent 200 000 roupies. Alors, Xavier Duval, cette question élaborée dans le sens qui, est-ce que le gouvernement peut payer un 14e mois, c'est-à-dire un mois additionnel de boni, à part le 13e mois qui est déjà obligatoire, à sa catégorie d'employés-là. Et en même temps, les demander si le gouvernement peut légiférer, c'est-à-dire pour rendre obligatoire un tel paiement, comme généralement le cas pour le 13e mois. Et qui mécanisme le gouvernement capable de mettre en place pour soutenir financièrement une compagnie qui est en difficulté et qui donc peut-être pas prenant les moyens pour besoin de l'aide, de soutien financier et en retour peut-être de capable de rembourser. Donc c'est 350 000 travailleurs et Nawaz de vous faire rappel qu'il nous a un labor force, c'est-à-dire une main-d'œuvre active dans le pays qui est chiffré à 553 000 donc employés qui peuvent travailler dans le pays. Alors, nous trouvons Xavier Duval peut rejoindre un petit peu et son papa, Gaëtan Duval, qui propose le 13e mois et pour la première fois dans le pays en 1975, quand le gouvernement de Ramgoulam, Saga Ramgoulam, décide pour payer un quart de mois de boni à ban policiers qui y travaillent pendant la visite de la reine et également pendant les années 73-74. Donc, le tribunal du service civil, qui Gaëtan Duval t'y fait rappel, finalement, t'y décide pour donner un mois salaire total, un boni additionnel, surtout qu'en 1975, c'est l'année de boom sucrier. 1974, il y a environ 1 milliard roupies de revenus dans le pays et le secteur privé, surtout l'industrie sucrière, le patronat Nawaz, exceptionnellement, je demande 21 mois de boni. 21 mois de boni, c'est-à-dire à part de la paye additionnellement, et finalement, je gagne 12 mois de boni. À part de la paye. Ça, c'est un peu l'histoire, c'est-à-dire Gaëtan Duval, il a insisté pour qu'il ça rende obligatoire, et c'est le ministre des Finances d'alors, Sevira Samiringadou, et le ministre du Travail, Youssouf Mohamed, qui finalement viennent avec la loi pour rendre le boni de fin d'année obligatoire. Mais aujourd'hui, il est ciblé, cette question de Xavier Duval, il pas concerne tous les salariés, il concerne les 350 000 qui paient tous moins que 50 000 roupies par rapport à l'augmentation du coût de la vie.
Alors, est-ce que le gouvernement pour légiférer pour payer sa boni de 14e mois-là? Réponse dans quelques minutes.
Honourable members, I have an announcement to make. As you may recall, at the sitting of Tuesday last, I informed the House that the National Assembly will be hosting the 54th Plenary Assembly of the SADC-PF in the Saharel al-Baghdadi Memorial Hall from 22nd to 26th November 2023. The Parliament of Mauritius has a responsibility to provide the officers of the SADC-PF with an office space to set up the Secretariat during the event. In this context, I have exceptionally authorized that the 2 committee rooms of the National Assembly be used for that purpose. Moreover, I wish to inform the House that I have nominated the following honorable members to attend the plenary assembly session as observers. Honorable Danu, Parliamentary Private Secretary. Honorable Mayat, Parliamentary Private Secretary. Honorable François, Parliamentary Private Secretary. Honorable Armance, Opposition Whip, and Honorable Naganiga. Honorable members, in view of the fact that Honorable Armance will not be able to participate in the plenary assembly, I have nominated Honorable David as observer in his stead. I thank you for your attention.
Those have been laid. Questions?
Mr. Speaker, my question is addressed to the Honorable Minister of Labour, Human Resource Development and Training. Whether, in regard to the rise in the cost of living over calendar years 2022 and 2023, he will state if government proposes to legislate for the payment of a 14th month bonus in December 2023 to all employees of the private and public sectors earning less than 50,000 rupees, whilst providing for a mechanism to assist those employers facing financial difficulties.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for this PNQ, as it gives me an opportunity to highlight the different measures that this government has taken to improve the living condition and livelihood of the populations since we came in power in December 2014. It is a known fact that in many countries across the world, employers are legally mandated to pay a 13-month or 14-month bonus in addition to an employee's standard monthly salary. However, this may differ from one country to another. In some countries, it is mandatory, whereas in others, it is customary. The 13th-month salary is generally paid as a bonus by the employer to the employee at the end of the year, and not to compensate for the rise in the cost of living. It would be appropriate to recall the history of the payment of a 13-month bonus, both in the public and in the private sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the wake of the rise of the price of sugar on the international market, a phenomenon known as the bonanza, trade unions started claiming 13th-month salary, but companies in the sugar industry, the sugar barons, were reluctant to pay this additional salary. It was under such pressure that the Sugar Industry Staff Employees Association signed a collective agreement to the effect that a 13-month bonus salary or bonus would be paid based on an annual profit. However, the non-agricultural and agricultural workers were not entitled to same. The workers of other sectors of the economy were also not concerned, and this led to massive demonstrations and protests on part of the trade unionists and workers. Subsequently, in 1975, the then government decided that a 13-month salary bonus would have to be paid to every employer. The End of Gratuity Act was therefore introduced in 1976 and provided for payment of end-of-year gratuity for the year of 1976 only. However, it is apposite to point out that here that similar provisions were not made for the years 1978, 1979, 1980, 1981, 1983, 1984, and 1985 due to the phenomenon we commonly know as les années de braise. Mr. Speaker, sir, following the enactment of the End-of-Year Gratuity Act in 2001, the payment of end-of-year bonus was made mandatory under an MSM-led government, and this has led to a guaranteed payment of end-of-year bonus every year, irrespective of the economic situation. Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to consider the payment of a 14-month bonus, We will have to hold wide consultations with different stakeholders to ensure its sustainability, as we have always been doing for salary compensation and minimum wage, etc. Mr. Speaker, sir, this government has always been on the side of the workers and has always showed compassion and consideration irrespective of the economic situation. Let me remind the House that during the worst crisis this country has ever faced, this government, to maintain the livelihood of the workers, has paid salaries of employees and self-employed workers for 21 months to the tune of 21 billion rupees, or more than $600 million. Therefore, which amounts to 5% of the GDP. We have also countered the rise in price of basic products by allocating subsidies to the tune of 7 billion rupees, or more than 12% of our GDP. We have paid one-off subsidy to self-employed for an amount of 2 billion rupees, and we have supported for salary compensation for SMEs. During the recovery process, as from 2022, we have continued to support the purchasing power of our population. And allow me to indicate the following measures that were taken. The CSG income allowance was introduced to alleviate the financial pressure faced by the population caused by the pandemic. In 2022-23 budget, it was announced that the CSG income allowance of 1,000 rupees would be given to those earning less than 50,000 rupees. Additionally, in budget 2023-2024, the CSG income allowance of 1,000 rupees has been maintained for those earning less than 50,000 rupees, with an additional 1,000 rupees for those earning less than 25,000 rupees. This means that around 200,000 workers have seen their CSG income benefit double to 2,000 rupees a month. A special allowance to supplement the national minimum wage and ensure a guaranteed minimum income was set at 15,000 rupees in the last budget. The CSG child allowance of 2,000 rupees per month was put in place to financially support young parents. Now, also, free primary education was introduced this year, and this in itself represents an additional burden of 5,000 rupees per child. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is another mechanism whereby the rise in cost of living is compensated in measures, and it is known as the salary compensation, which is calculated by the annual tripartite committee. I wish to inform the House that for 2024 salary compensation, I am chairing the technical committee on the 4th of December 2023, and my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Finance, will chair the annual tripartite committee on the 7th of December 2023, and government will decide on the quantum of the compensation. Furthermore, there is another mechanism to look into the review of the national minimum wage. Let me inform the House that in the last budget, I amended through the Finance Bill the National Wage Consultative Council Act for an early review of the national minimum wage. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Wage Consultative Council has already embarked on the review of the national minimum wage, and the report is expected to be submitted by the end of this month, after which government will decide on the quantum of the national minimum wage to be payable to the workers of this country as from January 2022.
Speaker, every week we have the same song of what government has given here and there to various categories of workers in the population. However, there is also another side to the equation. And in that side of the equation talks about huge inflation of 10% last year, 9% so far this year, the huge increase in interest rates hitting the population very hard, huge increase in taxes being collected by the MRA and government generally, and an unprecedented depreciation of the rupee of 48% since you took government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. I'd like to ask the Minister whether he's aware of the last survey, opinion survey made by Synthèse, widely published. And in that survey, for working population, 82.4% of the working population considered that inflation and the diminishing purchasing power was their major concern in life. 82.4%, that is official. This is why I'm asking the government to legislate to provide for a 40th-month salary to compensate for whatever has happened this year, leaving salary compensation, as we know, is for next year.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I must say that I have not taken cognizance of the report that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition have just mentioned. But one thing I can say that I have just listed an array of measures that the government took to compensate the loss of purchasing power of the working class. Mr. Speaker, sir, talk about inflation. Okay, last year the inflation rate was high. This year it has gone down, and I'm sure the upcoming exercise will take into consideration the inflation rate, and we will determine the annual salary compensation to be given accordingly. It is good that the population and the House know, Mr. Speaker, sir. I refer to the inflation rate that was prevailing in 2007. Okay, that was the inflation rate was 8.8% in 2007 and 9.7% in 2008. The salary compensation that was given by the then government was, for the year 2007, when it was 8.8%, 135 rupees only. For the year 2008, when the inflation rate was 9.7%, it was 400 rupees only. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, the country was experiencing an average growth of 10%. Mr. Speaker, sir, maybe I'm not finished. As a responsible government, Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to legislate for any payment of a 14-month bonus, a lot of consideration will have to be taken into account. For example, Mr. Speaker, sir, the capacity to pay of the enterprise. And I'm sure the Leader of the Opposition will agree with me that not all enterprise have the same capacity to pay. But as we have always been saying, Mr. Speaker, we have never let the workers of this country down when it comes to upgrading their conditions, their living conditions, their work conditions. And what do you mean, okay, I'm answering? No, Mr. Speaker, sir, we just cannot decide. We just cannot decide without holding consultation on if we will introduce a 14-month bonus for the workers or not. We have given enough consideration by giving additional income support for the working class of this country to support them and counter the loss in purchasing power.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps you will ask him to be shorter in his replies to give a chance to the population, to get some answers out of this government.
Honorable member, I am on my feet. You have to shorten your question. Your question was about 5 lines.
He doesn't have to shorten his reply. Mr. Speaker,
Specific
all
question.
of the persons surveyed of the lower income group said, all of them said that the minimum wage was insufficient. So it's good news if there's going to be some increase. At the same time, the minister may not be aware that my predecessor, his boss, gave only 120 rupees compensation when he was Minister of Finance in 2010 for 2011. So you need to be careful when you speak. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Honourable Minister whether, on the other side of the equation, he has taken a look at company profits. Company profits, I have taken the 20 big companies that have published their profits recently. Will you be surprised to note that profits this year compared to last year have increased by about 80% for these companies and over 250% compared to pre-COVID year 2019. And this is mainly due to your government's policy of depreciating the rupee that helps the Minister of Finance, helps companies to the detriment of the whole population. Have you taken into account the recent publications of company profits?
Let
That's
the
the question.
minister reply.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it's a good thing that companies in Mauritius are making profit, and this will eventually benefit the workers of this country. And this has always been the case. Whenever companies make profit, they, even though it is not mandatory, but they customarily do provide 14-month bonus, 15-month bonus. This is nothing new. As regard to the figure he mentioned when the Honorable Prime Minister was the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, sir, at that time, the inflation rate was only 2.9%. And the compensation, salary compensation that was given was 420 rupees. 420 rupees. I have the figures. You want me to table? I can table it.
Order.
The fact is 120 rupees for
420 rupees.
Mr.
420.
Speaker, there was 120 rupees. That is not true, Mr. Speaker. And then people will laugh because I will publish the
So
figures
put
later.
your question. Put your question.
Give me a minute. Be patient.
Let
Be
me,
patient.
Let me give my ruling.
Give
Let me give my ruling. This is question time. Leader of the opposition, you have the right to put questions. No debate, no comments, questions, direct questions.
raise points, I have to answer. I can't just leave it as a fact
This is what
when
I
points
want.
are raised. I cannot.
This is what I want to inform the House, that there is no debate in this House right now. It is on the order paper question time. Question time should come from the leader of the opposition. Questions should come from the leader. No statement, no debate.
Come from the government, not take 2007, 2008. Is that an answer for today?
Again, I can't, honorable members, I can't prevent any minister from the executive. I can't prevent them to explain their policies. But question time is regulated. The way of putting question is regulated by the standing order. And I hope the leader of the opposition has been an acting prime minister, knows more than me.
I do know more than you. I have never
So
seen
put it
question
into
time
practice.
like this in my whole career. I have
Put it
never
into
seen
practice.
question time like this. Never. This is the first time in my life that I see question time like this.
Let us
First
proceed.
time.
Let us proceed with
Thank you.
direct
I will
questions.
proceed. Thank you. I will proceed.
Direct question.
I do have more experience than you. I will proceed. Now, Mr. Speaker, on the other hand, government revenues, which have been boosted by depreciation of the rupee and inflation, have increased by 70 billion rupees a year compared to pre-COVID. 70 billion. MRA just published a figure, 23 billion rupees more money than the previous year, Mr. Speaker. This is why I'm saying company profits are huge.
Put your question. What is your question?
If you're patient, maybe I will get a chance.
Put your question.
Yes. Company profits are huge. Money representing taxes from the people of Mauritius have jumped and boosted, Mr. Speaker. This is why. And the people are suffering. 82% of workers are complaining about the purchasing power under this government. This is why I'm saying to the government.
Now you're making a statement. You're making a speech.
I am.
I have
Thank
to
you.
regulate the business of the House. I'm asking you, put your direct question to the minister. As many
Question.
questions as you have. No statement, no debate.
I will put the questions as I see. I have to put the question, Mr. Speaker. Now, I'm going to ask the Minister, given that huge increase in government revenue, 70 billion rupees, given huge increases of company profits, whether and loss of purchasing power of the population, 9% inflation up to September 2023, will he not consider making it mandatory? Because the increase in prices is for everyone, not just large company employees. We consider making it mandatory for every employer to pay and provide for some mechanism like the mois
Let the Minister answer.
for
We got your question.
companies who cannot
Minister.
afford it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, whenever there is an amendment to the Workers' Rights Act or any other legislation, they themselves come to this very house and say that whether there has been consultation, what will be the impact on this measure on companies? They are always vocal about it. Us, Honorable Utim, us, his colleague, Honorable Balamudi, in all his speeches, whether there has been consulted. I have made it clear earlier. For us to legislate on the issue, we'll have to hold proper consultations because we are a responsible government.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that at the request of the opposition, the government will hold consultations on the 14th month. I'm extremely happy that this will happen. Mr. Speaker,
Your
I'd like
happiness
to
is not
ask,
important. Put your questions. Your question as leader of the opposition is very important.
which is a constitutional right. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you for reminding us. Now, I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister whether he has taken note of the rise in interest rate. Most people in this country owe money to the bank. Interest rate increases amount to 2,000 rupees per month to 4,000 rupees per month for the average household. Now, that also needs to be taken into consideration by giving a 14th month, which you will now, we understand, hold consultations with the private sector. Thank you for that.
Mr. Speaker, sir, obviously we'll take these into consideration when we will hold the annual salary compensation committee, which is due in next week and the week after. We will take all the parameters, the imperative of the economy to decide on the amount to be decided as quantum for the salary compensation, which is given to compensate loss in purchasing power.
Question.
As you will know, compensation is for next year.
No, don't
January.
explain.
Not
Put your
this
question.
year. This year, not this year. If you look at Statistics
No,
Mauritius,
put your question.
if you look at Statistics Mauritius, the minister will see that salaries have increased by 5.7% only, compared to about twice the inflation in 2023. Now, this is why. That is for next year, what you're talking about, salary compensation. This is for this year. What are you going to do to give people some breathing space at the end of this year, given that salaries, official figures from the government, show that salary increases are far less than inflation?
Mr. Speaker, sir, at the beginning of this year, it was decided to give a salary compensation of 1,000 rupees. In the last budget that was presented in June, the CSG allowance that was given last year was maintained for those drawing less than 50,000 rupees. And for those earning less than 25,000 rupees, we gave an additional 1,000 rupees as CSG allowance. These are facts. These are amount that this government has disbursed to come to the help of the working class. And we have also, Mr. Speaker, sir, we should not forget, we have helped SMEs to pay salary compensation to their employees. And we have done this last year, and we are continuing to support these SMEs.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the minister whether he has read his own survey of employment and earnings. Yes or no? Because it says clearly on paragraph 3.71 that, and I read it for the minister's knowledge, he doesn't seem to know about that. Overall average monthly earnings increased by 5.7% from March 2022 to March 2023. So it's clear that average earnings are rising far less. Whatever else you are giving by way of this or other, that is another issue. These are statistics, Mauritius, they're figures. And therefore, I would ask the minister, it is the PMSD who in 1975, Sir Gaiton Duval brought a motion to bring the 13th month. So I'll ask the minister again, this year being an exceptionally difficult year for the country because of the deliberate policy of depreciation by government, will he not therefore legislate for the 14th month, giving a WAS type, wage assistance type, help to those small companies that are unable to pay because the government has collected billions upon billions of additional revenue from depreciation and inflation?
Mr. Speaker, so I'm not saying that we will or we will not. I maintain we will have to hold consultation.
When will your consultations be? On the, I'm talking about compensation, not on salary compensation, but on the 14th month. When will that be?
I'm talking about salary compensation.
Don't repeat what you're saying. Don't play on words. We're talking about the 14th month bonus. When? I'm not that stupid. I don't understand between 14th month and salary compensation. When will you have said repeatedly that you cannot do it without talking to people and consulting? I am asking you formally, when will you be having salary consultation?
Mr. Speaker, sir, when we decided to introduce the national minimum wage, we did not just decide like this on the quantum. We had put a council to determine the quantum of the national minimum wage, and that council consists of different stakeholders, be it trade union, business community, civil society, the government, and all. We cannot just à la va-vite prendre une décision sur la question.
The people will note that the opposition is on the side of the employees and the workers, and the government is taking the side
This is not a question.
of the
This is not
paid
a question.
employers.
Your question
The
is therefore
people will
political.
note, and you
doing
people,
politics.
Cheap,
You are
cheap,
doing
cheap,
politics
cheap,
now.
cheap,
this question.
cheap.
I have looked at increases in prices since COVID. You will be interested too, Mr. Speaker. Tuna has increased by 67, canned tuna, 67%. Macaroni, the famous macaroni, 79%. Rani oil, 67%. Colgate, toothpaste, 43%. Palmolive soap, 48%. Pilchard tomatoes, that is what the poorest people here in this country eat. Pilchard tomatoes. Soon you will have to give it for free. 56%. Sardines, Mr. Speaker. Sardines. You won't eat sardines, maybe. 57%. This is the question.
Population is waiting for you.
57%. I've just taken, Mr. Speaker, the most basic commodities that people consume. Pilchards, sardines, tuna, oil, etc. have increased by an average of 50% or more since COVID. And the government is talking about holding consultations to see who can pay, who cannot pay. I say, Mr. Speaker, I allowed the minister one last time. It is time to forget your friends, the employers, and think about the people who have voted for us.
Leader of the opposition, do you have a question?
Mr. Speaker, let me allow to. We have always been on the side of the workers, Mr. Speaker, sir. It's us who have introduced the Workers' Rights Act. It is us who have introduced the PRGF. It is us who have introduced the national minimum wage. Whilst they were there was it, let me remind the House that his mentor, the then honorable leader of the opposition, Paul Raymond Béranger, what he said on the 26th of May 2016 when we were negotiating, when we were holding consultations with different stakeholders for the introduction of the national minimum wage. What he said, when you have, as I said, 29 members of the council, it would be difficult for them to perform and come with concrete proposals. Therefore, I hope that the Honourable Minister will tell what the trade unions have told him. If no one is prepared to sit on the council, as amended, say money. And when it is money, forget about salaire minimum, minimum vital. Where is salaire minimum, minimum vital? It is applicable in this country. And he went on to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, the small and medium enterprises have specific problem, has specific problem and will directly be impacted upon fixing of national minimum wage. For national minimum wage, his mentor was saying, what about 14 mois bonus? What will he say? What will he say, Mr. Speaker? We are killing businesses in Mauritius. That's what he will say, I presume. What about, he tend to forget, when he was in government, when he was the Minister of Finance, some poor cleaners of this country was earning 1,500 rupees. Now they earn 10 times more than what they were earning. 10 times more, Mr. Speaker.
Voilà, une private notice question à faute connotation politique parce qu'il concerne donc un request and proposal pour un 14e mois bonus. Et là, la réponse du ministre du Travail est un petit peu ambiguë, il n'est pas trop clair. À un moment donné, Xavier Le Duval demande est-ce que le gouvernement pour légiférer, pour amender la loi, pour faire que tout ben employeur, y compris secteur privé, obligé paye un 14e mois bonus, et ben c'est qui pas capable, vous êtes en difficulté financière, est-ce que le gouvernement peut mettre en place un mécanisme, comme on a fait pendant Covid, pour aider ben employeur en difficulté paye un 14e mois bonus. Donc la question est claire et directe, est-ce que le gouvernement peut légiférer pour rendre obligatoire le paiement de 14e mois bonus cette année-là? Le ministre Kalichan répond, il dit qu'il peut bien faire proper consultation. Il dit qu'il besoin consulter tous les stakeholders. Et là, bien sûr, il besoin consulter Business Mauritius, il besoin consulter le secteur privé. Et puis, quelques minutes plus tard, le ministre Kalichan dit qu'il peut cause consultation dans le cadre de compensation salariale qui fait chaque année. Et l'India, qui est pour président du comité technique de compensation salariale le 4 décembre, et le ministre des Finances pour présider la réunion du 7 décembre. Donc, la réponse du ministre Kalichan n'est pas claire. À un moment donné, il donne l'impression qu'il peut faire consultation, le paiement 14e mois bonus, et puis, quelques minutes après, il peut dire consultation, la compensation salariale. Which Jagdish nous pas connaît, mais Xavier Duval peut insister, il peut dire qu'avec augmentation du taux d'inflation, il dit par exemple une commodité de base finit augmenter en moyenne par 50%, et il dit finit une dépréciation, ce qu'il appelle délibérée de la roupie, inflation, dépréciation de la roupie, fait que travailleur mauricien peut faire face a beaucoup de difficultés pour les deux bouts. Donc, finalement, une augmentation substantielle du coût de la vie. Et Xavier Duval, catégorique, lui dire qui exceptionnellement, cette année-là, bien paye 14e mois bonus.
Ouais. Et Xavier Duval, il base sur demande les 5 considérations. Premièrement, il fait référence au sondage Synthèse l'Express pour dire que le coût de la vie est augmenté. Il y a une préoccupation dans la population. 82,4% qui finit interrogé. Priorité, c'est que le coût de la vie et l'inflation, les pépos très dur sur le porte-monnaie. Ça, c'est le premier argument qu'Xavier Duval a avancé pour montrer qu'il y a une forte majorité de la population trouvée la vie invincible. Deuxième considération, deuxième côté, fait observation même, il dit qu'il y a une huge increase, une très forte augmentation au niveau des revenus du gouvernement en termes de taxes qui MRA, Mauritius Revenue Authority, peut ramasser. Et il mentionne un surplus de 23 milliards de roupies. Troisième considération, constat, big profits by companies. Une compagnie, c'est vrai, nous avons constaté pendant ces 6 derniers mois, il y a une reprise totale au niveau de grandes compagnies, que ce soit Swan, Rogers, IBL, et la banque porte 3, 4 milliards, 7 milliards roupies de profit. Alors, Xavier Duval dit, voilà, il y a suffisamment de revenus pour cette compagnie-là. Au moins, je fais un gros effort, un effort additionnel, je compense ban employés pour le paiement un 14e mois. L'autre aspect, c'est qu'il dit, salaire, augmente par 5,7%, beaucoup moins, c'est-à-dire comparé avec l'augmentation du coût de la vie. Et l'autre point qu'il a avancé, il y a une dépréciation de la roupie de l'ordre de 48%, donc c'est qui montrait que les Mauriciens, le pouvoir d'achat, il y a une érosion du pouvoir d'achat avec la dépréciation de la roupie. Et l'autre dernier point qui est avancé, c'est le rise in interest rate. C'est-à-dire tout ban Mauricien qui prend ban loan et surtout ban loan au niveau du logement, le taux d'intérêt, le repo rate est augmenté et je peux besoin payer 2 000 à 4 000 roupies en plus chaque mois, c'est-à-dire remboursement qu'ils peuvent faire avec la banque ou une institution qui fait de loan dans le logement. Alors là, quand nous étions, et nous constatons au départ de sa question-là, Nawaz, que le ministre du Travail, Toute Scalichon, il pas dire qu'il compte le paiement d'un 14e mois.
Oui, mais il y a besoin
d'une consultation.
Il y a des causes de capacité to pay. Il y a besoin parce que c'est partout ben employeur qui a la capacité pour payer. C'est pour ça qu'il a fait consultation. Mais Xavier Duval finit de donner la solution. Il a mis en place un mécanisme comme tu mettais le Wage Assistance Scheme, le WAS, pendant la COVID. Il peut dire au gouvernement aide financièrement pour capable payer sa boni de fin d'année de 14e mois. Et là, la question a une faute connotation politique. Xavier Duval, il rappelle que c'est le PMSD, Sargent Duval, ou même tu le rappelles dans l'introduction, en 1975, qui vient avec une motion. Et là, Zodi, ce garçon, Xavier Duval, qui dit dans l'opposition, peut venir avec sa proposition-là. Il ne faudrait pas oublier qu'il nous entame l'année électorale.
Oui.
Donc, une faute connotation politique, le gouvernement est attendu au tournant. Donc là, soit il donne une compensation salariale substantielle, ou alors il paye 14e mois bonus. Mais 14e mois bonus, c'est pas la même chose qu'une compensation. Une compensation, c'est comme pensé d'une certaine façon, mais Xavier Duval, il peut insister, il dit qu'il aimerait fin collecter des milliards d'euros additionnels en termes de taxes, ben compagnie peut faire profit. L'idée qui paye aucune raison pour ne pas payer sa 14e mois bonus, c'est qu'il n'est pas capable de payer gouvernement, bizarre et d'autres. Donc, voilà la proposition de l'opposition.
Oui, un wage assistance type, comment dire. Alors, là, pour un auditeur et un internaute comprend, il y a deux aspects. Il y a le 13e mois qui peut payer pour un fonctionnaire le 15 décembre, et il finit annoncé, donc il peut 10 jours avant Noël et 15 jours avant Réveillon. Parce qu'il y a une circulaire, une sortie qui tout un paiement qui est fait par une institution gouvernementale, coopérative, la fonction publique. Donc, je bizarre fini prêt avec une fiche de paye le 8 décembre. Également, la pension pour Tom dans sa catégorie. Ça, c'est le 13e mois. Xavier Duval peut insister pour qu'il le 14e mois, à ceux qui touchent moins de 50 000 roupies, les payer en décembre, ça l'année-là. Et il dit qu'il ne faudrait pas nous mélanger la compensation salariale qui pourra entrer en vigueur la fin janvier 2024. Et sa décision-là, pour annoncer concernant la compensation salariale, c'est le 7 décembre que le ministre des Finances pour annonce le quantum, c'est-à-dire le montant qui pour payer à man salarié concernant la compensation et qui donc pour payer prend effet à partir de janvier 2024. Alors, au départ, comment nous dire, nous pas trop beaucoup de confusion, mais à la fin, est-ce que le ministre des Finances et le ministre du Travail pour profiter du comité tripartite qui pourrait en décembre pour évoquer sa question de 14e mois-là, ou bien pour une consultation séparée sur la question.
Oui, mais Jagdish, compensation salariale et paiement 14e mois, c'est des effets totalement différents.
Totalement différents.
Oui. Donc là, le gouvernement, d'après moi, le gouvernement faisait prendre une décision avant même qu'ils y entament la consultation tripartite de compensation salariale. Il y a une policy decision qui bizarre prend là, dans les jours à venir.
Dans les jours à venir, les bizarres, avant le 30 décembre, comment capable un 14e mois payé après aussi.
Avant le 30 novembre.
Oui. C'est-à-dire
la décision
avant le 30 novembre, mais seulement finalement dans le passé, quand certaines compagnies, ils demandent une dérogation. Je ne pas capable de payer avant la fin décembre de certaines années. Ils donnent une dérogation, mais vous pensez première fois quand ils appliquent le 13e mois et dans certaines compagnies qui gagnent jusqu'à le mois de mars de l'année. Qui arrivait l'année suivante pour être capable de faire le paiement. Alors, donc, une question importante. Et nous disons, l'autre côté, pour garder la balance, c'est que le ministre du Travail, sur des scalitions, il rappelle, c'est que le gouvernement, il fait.
CSG
allowance, et le salaire minimum. Et là, l'Indien a un rapport sur le salaire minimum qui est en préparation.
Pour la révision du salaire minimum. Et le rapport pour rendre public, pour être soumis à la fin du mois de novembre.
Oui.
Donc, il y a la compensation salariale, il y a le rapport sur le salaire minimum. Donc, le gouvernement est capable de prendre une mesure en parallèle au lieu du 14e mois. Il est capable d'augmenter le salaire minimum, il est capable de donner une compensation salariale substantielle. Ça, c'est une option qu'il a pour le gouvernement.
Qui est envisagée. Et à partir de quand est-ce qu'il est pour appliquer? À partir de 2022 ou 2023, tout ça là pour faire partie des bonnes propositions qui peuvent venir. Et donc, c'est une question d'intérêt national parce qu'il concerne tout le monde. Ensuite, il est nécessaire, Nawaz nous rappelle que quand il décide pour payer un 13e mois ou un quart de boni, demi-mois de boni, et le tribunal du service civil, c'est-à-dire pas capable de faire discrimination au niveau de un salarié d'une certaine catégorie seulement. C'est là que le 13e mois, il devient obligatoire pour tout le monde.
Mais la proposition de Xavier Duval pour un 14e mois, il concerne un employé qui gagne moins de 50 000 roupies.
Mais seulement sa revendication-là, il vient après, de l'extérieur, quand le syndicat dit, mais dans les autres encore, sont affectés par le coût de la vie, qui fait 50 000, pas mal qui 60 000 ou 70 000.
Oui.
Ça, c'est une revendication qui vient
un employé qui touche 55 000 par mois, pas veut dire qu'il n'est pas affecté par le coût de la vie.
Par le coût de la vie.
Ouais.
Et là, ça, c'est l'autre partie de revendication qui nous fait suivre dans les années 75-80 et qui finalement, il rend obligatoire le paiement du 13e mois et qui est déjà en vigueur donc dans le pays depuis 1975, après la proposition qui Gaëtan Duval d'y faire devant le tribunal du service civil.
Voilà, donc est-ce qu'il pour payer un 14e mois bonus à l'année-là, le ministre Kalitchan pas dire oui, il pas dire non, il dit qu'il peut bien tenir une consultation. Donc, dans les jours à venir, nous pourrons une idée bien claire dans qui direction le gouvernement peut aller. Mais en tout cas, c'est la proposition du leader de l'opposition, bien payer un boni de fin d'année de 14e mois à la fin de 2023. Voilà donc pour cette tranche consacrée à la PNQ. À venir, le journal complet à 13h avec Dushila Mansingh. Sinon, travaux parlementaires peut continuer. Là, en ce moment, c'est le Prime Minister's Question Time. Et Pravin Jagnat peut répondre à une question, le fentanyl. Nous avons abordé ça vendredi dernier dans l'émission Au cœur de l'info. C'est la question de Nan de Boda sur le fentanyl qui est considéré comme étant beaucoup plus dangereux qu'héroïne. Et d'après Sam Lotan, il retrouve une trace de fentanyl à Maurice. Donc, nous vous guettons qui Pravin Jagnat peut répondre à cette question-là. Merci à nos auditeurs et internautes. À bientôt.